You're listening to the Enneagram and Marriage podcast. I'm your host, Krista Harden, and I'm so glad you showed up for our relationship chat today, as well as for you and your people. We're all about living intentionally here so you can experience joy and balance in your relationships once again or for the very first time. Be sure you hang with us on our social media platforms, and if you like research like I do, make sure you check out our website at enneagramandmarriage.com for our weekly newsletter, freebies, and so much more, as well as at Instagram and Facebook. We have so many goodies to share with you. Let's dive right in together. Hello, my friends. So glad you joined for this episode today as we have a special on friendship, loneliness, and the courage to try again with the beautiful author, Kristen Strong. She's a 2 and a 2-5 pairing. This is a Memorial Day special. I hope that if you are listening on your holiday, that you're having a great one and that you are allowing yourself to truly drink in with me today the importance of relationships. I have been studying so much lately about not only physical and emotional health, but even just the way that loneliness impacts us and how important the relating and bonding hormone oxytocin helps us. And just thinking about giving a good friend a hug and finding people that get you and thinking about that and how important it is has just been on my mind because of all this research lately. And I was so blessed to be able to go after church today, have a really nice time of pizza with my friend and my friend's daughter, who's also my friend, and the girls and Jack. And then Wes and I had a great date night this weekend. And we also had fun visiting a friend at a ballet on Saturday. And we really love those times of giving hugs, of having good rest in between, and also doing the work of finding friends when it's not as natural as that. And I just want to say, I love it in the sense that I've learned over the years how it's possible, how it can be done. But I also joined Kristen today, who's going to talk to us about times when friendships don't come as easily. And what do we do if we lose trust? Or what do we do when we're rejected? Or what do we do when there's just very few people around? So I am picking with all these questions and really trying to get at the heart of what we can do across all kinds of seasons of friendship, loneliness, boundaries needed, you name it. We're talking about it today. So I hope you just really enjoy and have your coffee with us and be friendly with us. And so get or give a hug today. Listen to this episode, make your plan, choose one thing from the episode to really get into relationship with. And if you just need to give yourself a hug, there is some great research about that too. Just putting your arms around yourself for a butterfly hug does help, or giving your pet some pets. It's so cute to do that, right? I don't mean giving them other pets. I mean some pets. And I was just reading Fast Like a Girl by Dr. Minzy Peltz, and she was talking about that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool to just remember that we can also self-soothe. We can also have our pets, etc. But you know what? We need people. So don't forget that as well. And if you're a person who has served in a military setting, thank you, or thank you for those who have sacrificed so much, seen and unseen, for many others of us across the U.S., across the world. I know today's guest, Kristen, actually was a military wife for many years. Her husband's now retired, but just love that we can share this with her and bring her voice up today, because we know that's a special population who has extra need for friendships. And so just know that you are in the right place if you have any desire for connection. Hopefully that's all of us. And also don't forget that we have the Enneagram Summit coming up. It's called the Ennea Summit. It's in the show notes along with Kristen's beautiful new book and so much more. So make sure you check that all out today too. And let's talk to Kristen. Oh my goodness, Kristen, we're so happy to have you on the Enneagram and Marriage podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here, Krista.
Oh my goodness. Your title of your book is literally hilarious. Desperate Women Seeks Friends. We can't wait to dig in. We are all vulnerable at times. This podcast is all about authenticity and relationships. So thank you for just already being so authentic with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your Enneagram type, and all of that.
Absolutely. Well, I was born on O'Neill Lane in Oklahoma, Osage County, Oklahoma. And
Yeah.
the interesting thing about that was everybody on O'Neill Lane's last name was O'Neill, including mine. So I grew up with family, like literally as my neighbors.
It's
And so
amazing.
I know. Now I'm like, wow, that was really special. But growing up, it's just your life.
Yeah.
But it was quite the stark contrast to go from that to when
Mhm.
I met and married my military man, and we moved all around. And so that first assignment, when he took me out of, Oklahoma, and where I went from knowing literally everyone
Yeah.
to nobody.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I realized then and there, like, man, I had no idea how to make friends. I never
Mhm.
really had to do it, by and
Mhm.
large anyway.
Yeah.
My friends were just kind of always there, even when I went off to college, only an hour
Mm.
away.
Yeah.
So I would say that's, a little bit of my history. Military wife. I live in Colorado Springs now. My husband is retired from the Air Force, but works at the Air Force Academy on the civilian side of the fence.
Oh,
And I have three children. I have twin sons who are 25 and a daughter who is 21.
oh
So,
my goodness.
uh,
That's beautiful. I love that. And it's just wow. And perfect timing for Memorial Day. We're so appreciative of your family's service. Thank you.
oh, that's so kind. Thank you. Thank you for
Oh,
saying that.
oh my goodness. Well, we're grateful because there are people listening for that reason too, just really relating with you and understanding that whatever your Enneagram type, it's something we all deal with is loneliness at times. And you're so
Absolutely.
courageous that you took this on because it's something that is an absolute epidemic, as we both know, post-COVID. I love how in your book you weave in stories about how you met your hubby in college, right?
Right, right.
Oh my gosh. And do you know
Yes.
his Enneagram type also?
Yes, so I'm an Enneagram 2 and
Mhm.
he's an Enneagram 5. And from what I've heard, those don't always go great together, but
No,
we've
they do.
we we've made it work. So
Yes, yes. It's like there are the kinds of relationships, and I would say 80% of us have them where we are opposites on the spectrum. And so we share our beautiful lights together in a way that we never could have without each other. Has that been your experience?
yes, we are very complementary. Like we do not, our strengths are very different, but
Yeah.
they're what the other one needs. So yeah.
Yeah, and twos and fives both understand the need for the rejection cycle of like, if I'm not healthy, I could push you away before you can push me away. If I'm healthy, I'm gonna invite in vulnerability and I'm gonna understand rejection isn't always about me. So I'm sure in
Right.
that way, twos and fives do relate and you could support each other on the friendship journey. Is that right?
Yes, I would agree. Yeah, we both have like it's like we both have the perspective that the other needs to hear in that
Mhm.
moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So I love that. I love the way you phrase that though.
Yeah, that's unique. It twos, fives, and eights all share that feature, whereas the threes, the sixes and nines are a bit more pragmatist, and the ones, fours, and sevens are a bit more idealistic. But twos, fives, and eights, you really want to relate to others, but deal in those rejection themes. And so
Mm.
you've really overcome a lot, and I'm sure he has too, with each of you saying, "Oh my gosh, I love you so much." And of course, we didn't say it here, but we know twos and fives, every type has their gifts, every type has their shadows. But
Yes.
tell us a little bit about just why you felt like you already said, here's why I feel like this topic was important for me. Why do you think that there's such a loneliness epidemic with everybody, even if they're not military?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of issues at play with that. We're just becoming more of an individualistic society,
Mhm.
especially out here in the West.
Okay.
Our fences kind of get higher, our property lines,
Yeah.
and whatnot. But I think also social media does play into that. We can't blame it all on social media, but they
Yeah.
do get some credit because it lulls us into thinking we have connection when really it's like it's like if you ate all day just with breadcrumbs versus
Yeah.
sitting down to a meal. And
Yeah.
social media is like gives you
So
the little
good.
breadcrumbs, as opposed to sitting down and you face to face with somebody. That's more like you're receiving that meal connection
Mm.
that way. So it's much more deeper, more fulfilling um,
Mhm.
opportunity to be vulnerable and not just stay in the shallow waters. And that's what really helps you feel less lonely.
Mhm.
I think there's other factors too, in that just, in my research, I learned that families just spend twice, like now, families spend twice as much time with their kids than families of the past. So,
Mm.
and where we're kind of running them to sports and all the things, which in many ways
That's
is
good.
great.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's not a negative per se, but if your time is a pie, there's a smaller piece than for friends, and
Yeah.
we're just back burnering friendship quite a bit, where we
Mm.
think we need these, we need and want romantic relationships. Friendship is kind of a luxury, but
Mm,
really,
that's
friendship is not a luxury. I mean, loneliness is as dangerous to our health as smoking. It's like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
oh
So
my gosh.
yeah, so like, yeah,
Oh my
friendship's a terribly important component.
Thank you for just validating that. I often feel that guilt of my inner critic when I make time for friends. And
Yes.
it's largely because I'm in a very child-centric culture and I really adore my children. Like probably most of our listeners adore their children. And I think that it's something that you just nailed when and we're going to talk about boundaries too, which I love that you talk about, but like I feel guilty to set boundaries with my kids performance dates and all those things when I am asked, like, you could either volunteer or finally get coffee with a friend. And
Right.
sometimes I just need that coffee with a friend so bad because I'm
Yes.
working all week, homeschooling all week, and trying to dig into all their practices that by the time the Sabbath day comes, I just need a friend versus let's
Absolutely.
spend more time with your kids volunteering on their shows. And so I'm learning, I'm talking to the people and I'm saying, like, hey, I can do this night. But this one, I'm going to send my husband, who is extremely social. Well, I have a one-to-one with a friend. Is that what you recommend for parents in busy seasons? Is like trying to set some boundaries around how much we're asked to do? I guess that's my question. We're asked to do constant.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I love, like, I was never real excited about being on the PTA, but I didn't mind volunteering in my kid's classroom. But
Yeah.
I did that one day a week, and so
Yeah.
then I had time for friends. Now I worked part-time from home as well.
Okay.
So, but yeah, don't be afraid to schedule in. And what I have found is like making it a ritual, like the third Thursday of every month, we're going to go get coffee at 11, or we're going to
Mm.
meet for dinner at 5:30 or whatever. When you have that just steady on the calendar, it's like the work is kind of done for you. And of course, sometimes you'll need to cancel because so and so has a baseball game or a piano recital.
Yeah.
But just I feel like when you do that, when you just sort of say, this is the day we're going to get together,
Mm.
then it kind of half that work is done for you. But having said that, there are just seasons, when my kids were not driving, but in various, it's like middle school, early high school. I felt like my address was the minivan. Like I just was always in
Mm.
the car driving, and we still had parameters like, okay, you can do this and this, but no more.
Yeah.
But so it is hard, but I feel like too, if I live in Colorado Springs, so and we live kind of on a hill.
Mhm.
If I want to climb that hill versus I want to climb Pikes Peak
Yeah.
out
Yeah. I
west,
love that. We
I
we did some of Pikes Peak a
yes.
couple of years ago.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes.
we love
So,
your
but
area.
yeah, oh great, great. Yeah, it is real pretty here. It is quite lovely. But like, I'm gonna have to work harder to get up Pikes Peak than I am the hill in my neighborhood. And so some seasons just require harder
Mm.
work, to get the stuff on the calendar.
Oh my gosh, you nailed that. And this is why we have to fight for it because even that day that I mentioned, I'm like, and
Oh,
it's like I then have to go to my son's soccer, then my kids have a recital. But there's an opportunity to volunteer. And so that's why I'm like, I have to send my husband for something. Like, I
Yes.
can't keep missing things because of the shoulds. And
Yes.
I think that you're helping me to feel a little less guilt around that. Like, there are moments when we just have to say, my friendship needs time. Now, how do you set boundaries with you? We kind of just walked through that, and you just reminded us this is a season where Krista's going to have to do that. She's going to have to barter a bit. Sometimes
Right.
the volunteering's going to win, sometimes the friendship's going to win, hopefully both. But what about those seasons when we feel like you talked about in your book, like friendships weren't as healthy? You used one in quotes, Eileen, who
Yeah.
wasn't as healthy of a friend, and you honestly knew that friendship was running out. How can we approach that, especially as Christian women
Yeah.
or Christian
Oh,
men as well?
right, right. Men
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
It always boils down to what I don't want to do as an Enneagram 2 is have a hard conversation,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I'm with you.
and yeah. And so that was one of those examples where I was like, I just don't think this friendship is working anymore. And, sometimes that happens and there's not a bad guy. Now, in that instant, now listen, in my book, I give plenty of examples where I'm like a needy friend and a friend that does not make good choices. But in
Yeah.
this case, Eileen was
Yeah.
really like piling on the criticism, and it
Yeah.
got to be where like this I cannot stay standing in this friendship. It's just
Mm.
crushing me.
Yeah.
And so I think then, when eventually it came to the time where she's like, hey, what's the deal? I was
Mm.
just honest and said, I'm sorry. I just don't think this friendship is working for us anymore.
Yeah.
And, I think I also put in the book just some different tools you can use to kind of help you through that. But I've had a counselor I've seen off and on for the last, I don't know, 10 years or so. And she gave me some really great tools about how, sometimes, if somebody, my if my boundaries change with somebody, that's because you're bound. If I'm wanting a bigger boundary between myself and a friend, that's because you're taking communication too far, and you are,
Mm.
not,
Yeah.
not having a self-imposed respectful boundary. So
Mm.
therefore I've got to have one to make to make up for that. So, you know um and it's not about coercing. It can't be about, making the other person see your point of view. I just keep it about me. This friendship is just not working for me anymore. And
Mm.
so
Yeah.
that's kind of how I've handled that.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're direct about it, even though you don't enjoy it, you're more direct about not just carrying it on because you feel bad.
Right. Now, I will say sometimes, just when I'm asked if I'm asked point blank, and not that I haven't initiated a direct response before,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's one of those things that's more gradual. Like I'll just take longer to respond to texts.
Yeah.
And it just sort of kind of naturally fades away a little bit.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, friendship is just such a nuanced topic. There's just a thousand ways to,
Yeah.
a thousand different circumstances that can all be handled a little bit differently.
Mm.
But in general, I think sometimes it just is, who said it first? Maybe Brene Brown, clarity is kindness. And so,
Yeah.
being clear about the response,
Yeah.
is preferable to just hemming and hawing. So,
Yeah, thank you. And that really, I do love that Brene Brown thought because that is kindness because then they can find a friend who's a better fit too. So thank you. And everyone,
right,
hopefully you're hearing that if somebody is not a good friend fit. And of course, this book goes into, like you said, so many moments when you yourself had to learn about growing in friendship. What's something that, because this is your specialty, you've really learned and would just love everyone to know about if you're really healthy with a friendship, please remember this is how to be a friend because I do think some of us have forgotten that lost art just by way of sometimes, like we said, not even having the time. Then when we do have the time, we don't know if we're coming on a little too heavy or a little too,
right.
what have you really learned about the art of friendship?
Yeah, yeah. Well, my story is one, I wasn't really, I was never really the mean girl, but I was the needy girl, six
Mm.
ways from Sunday. And
Okay.
I just could overwhelm
Mm.
people. And I kind of know why that is, but that's a conversation for another time. But
Yeah.
but but
I get that, girl. I've got you.
but
And I seriously
yes.
can do that to people too. So, yes.
Yeah, so Enneagram 2 is,
Yeah.
it came by for a reason,
Mhm.
so I could really overwhelm people. Now, I would say, one as a Christian, once I figured out and began regularly practicing a meeting with the Lord every day. When the kids were little, it wasn't always in the morning, but ideally for me, it's in the morning because that feels like I just get my day off on the right foot.
Mhm.
But it wasn't always that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But when I meet with the Lord, like He has not only endless capacity for my neediness,
Yeah.
He like wants every last bit of it. So when I give that to Him, then I approach my friends as a healthier person who does not overwhelm. And so my number one tip would really be, don't be afraid to do a little bit of self-evaluation. Like, are there any blind spots I have that maybe are
Yeah.
sabotaging my effort to make friends? And by spending time with the Lord, I kind of figured some of that out, but also I became healthier in that I know my worth. Like, I'm a good friend to folks now,
Mm.
and I am a valuable friend. So if
Mhm.
but a friendship takes two yeses. So if
Yeah.
the other person isn't a yes, I
Yeah.
do not internalize that as like, oh, there must be something wrong with me.
Mm.
That rejection isn't necessarily even about me.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, for whatever reason, that person's just not God's best for me if she's not
Yeah.
interested. So I'm going to
Yeah.
swivel my efforts to somebody who
Yeah.
is interested in a friendship with me. So not being afraid to just do, a little self-evaluation. And
Mm.
that for me, like that has been the best tool for myself.
Mm. And I hear the virtue of two coming out there, the humility versus an arrogant, prideful perspective of like,
Yeah.
they need me in their life. Instead, you're like,
Oh,
that's not God's best for me or for her, and that's okay. We don't have to track together. Like that is so beautiful to hear you say that. And it shows me how much work you've probably done on yourself. Do you think that relates also to the concept well, I love this quote in your book where you say, nothing has done more damage to my friendships than my propensity for setting
right.
meteorologically high expectations.
Yeah.
But yeah, is that kind of part of how you figured that out?
Oh, yes. Like I would just overwhelm to the point that I assumed my expectation was they're going to just overwhelm me right back. But I would have welcomed that because my
Yeah.
cup was not getting filled in the right places.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's a definite part of that. And not only do people not a lot of, at least most healthy people, don't
Yeah.
give in to that,
Yeah.
but they are kind of repelled by that. So yeah, so that's just really sabotaging myself when I didn't know I could. But yeah, expectations, like I know Ann Boskamp says it so beautifully, expectations kill relationships. And now I will say, in all honesty and transparency, like I still have to work on
Yeah.
expectations,
Yeah. Part of it. Yeah.
and make sure I'm not, I'm one that I want the Christmas magic, especially when the kids were little. I wanted like a
Mm.
postcard setting,
Yes. I
and
get that.
still when they come home to visit, because they're all out of the house now, I want
Mhm.
like their favorite foods, and then to all just be magical. And
Yeah.
and it's often wonderful, but like, life is life. It is not a fairy tale, so so
Right. And that goes for family, marriage, friendships, check, check,
exactly.
check. And I'm with you.
Yes.
Sevens and nines, all three of our types. I'm a seven, but we all want the positivity at all times. I was talking to my nine daughter about that today. So the three of us make up like, let's have positivity all the time.
So is
And
that's a two also? That's a two
yeah, there's
also? Oh
different
my goodness.
groups of three. Like I said, twos relate in
Yes.
different ways with five and eight. And as positivity types, they relate with seven and nine. So
Oh.
Yeah, so that's why my best friends are twos and nines that are, the ones I meet with monthly at least. Probably it's not because I'm not choosing to hang with the other ones. It's that these are the ones we just are desperate for each other through the month. And
Yes.
so I think that, but we also have these roles with many other people and friends that we want to be close to. And you're just saying we can't have the same expectations for everybody. And you keyed on something I don't want to miss, and that is that God is such a safe place for us. And as a busy two, do you find that like some of the twos we've talked to here on the pod have said mornings are the times that they can talk with God first? Like, when do you feel like, and I know everyone's different, but when is that time for you to get filled back up by God? Because so many people don't know how to do that. They're only used to being codependent heart types who are like, I need another person to do that.
Yeah, for me, I it's in the morning, but I'm blessed with an empty nest. So,
That's true.
I
Yeah.
mean, my husband is here, but we both are kind of doing our thing first thing in the morning. So
Mhm.
that's what helps me. Now, when my kids were younger, I would put them in high chairs with like Cheerios with a little show, and then I'd sit in the other room and have a little time while they watched a show.
Mhm.
Now, when they were middle school and stuff, I just got up real early, like at 5:30 or something, and did it then. But I get that's not everybody's jam. So actually, now that I think back to it, sometimes I did it after they just went to bed because they'd go to bed a little bit earlier then, but or at least in their younger years. So yeah, for me now it is first thing in the morning because I feel like, I'm just setting my day on I'm just setting it from the get-go on a course correction, like I guess I'm tuning my compass so I go the right, direction that I'm supposed to go for the day. Doesn't mean it doesn't go off the rails still here and there, but I think it would be worse if I didn't do that personally. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And you've really carved out, just as you would carve out time for a friend, you've carved out time for God at different seasons. And that's, I think, what I want every listener to hear is you're carving it out. It isn't like, if it happens, it happens because then we, like we just said, it's just not going to. And
Right.
so I think you're really reminding people of that. And when you do have that time with God, do you sometimes save a little time for God to speak back to you so that you feel like I'm listening and I'm engaging with God? Because I know for twos and many of the rest of us, we also love that part of the two-way relationship with God.
You know what? I just this morning I felt convicted on that I needed to be better about that. Because guess what I did right when I was done? I just grabbed my phone and
Yeah.
started, in on that.
Yeah.
So that is, I think, like truly just this morning I felt convicted. Like I
Isn't
need
that
to
funny?
sit and listen more when I'm done and not just like be off to the races. So the
Something we
answer
all need.
is
Yeah.
so the answer is no, but hopefully soon, or hopefully
Yeah.
tomorrow. Yes.
Yes, amen. There could be some good things just waiting for us if we take that pause, which we all know that that liminal space is scary for us, that the space of connecting or the space of talking, and then the space of moving on and doing something, those are normal spaces for most people that are busy, but the pause space with God is, yeah, that's a good one for me too. So I'm glad everyone here is we're hopefully doing that together to let God also speak into us so we're not quite as dependent on spouses, friends, children for everything, because there's so much in us that also needs connection with our Creator. So this, I think, is a spiritual practice as well. And I am going to mess this word up as well, but Freudenfreud, finding joy in others.
Oh,
Can you tell
uh,
us, or how do you pronounce that?
yes, Freud and Freud.
Okay,
I know.
never would have gotten that.
When I read the audiobook, I had to have it out phonetically every time so I would say it right. So forgive me if I'm still saying it wrong.
Yes, yes.
Yes, but that art of rejoicing in another's success,
Mm,
like that is just like the,
huge.
rocket fuel for your friendship,
It is. Yes.
And I think that comes like a mature friend is one who easily does that.
Mm,
Or even like, I mean, listen, I'll be honest. Your feelings about how, if somebody gets something
mm,
that you want,
mm,
and you may feel a little bit like, oh gosh, I'd love to have that too. And
mm,
that's fine. But I think as a grown up can be one who still does the right thing in spite of that feeling. And sometimes I think
Mhm.
when we do the right thing, then our feelings catch up to it. And we don't have like, it's like, we let the feelings kind of, I've heard it said, I don't know who said it originally, but your feelings get a seat in the car, but they don't drive the car,
Yeah.
so they're there, but you do what's right, because the right thing to do
Mm,
is to celebrate your friend's success. And thankfully,
love
one
that.
blessing of being 50 like I am is that I have learned that celebrating one person's success does nothing to take away from what God has in store for me.
Mhm.
It's not like a pool that when somebody gets something, then you're missing out. Your blessings are coming as well, and are already there.
Mm,
So just that exercise of really celebrating your friends.
yeah.
And it also, it in turn, that's God's economy, I think, is when you celebrate others, you feel lifted up yourself. You don't
Yeah.
feel, it's not, I mean, especially when you make it a habit, a practice, it doesn't feel like you are missing out so much as maybe you perceived it or maybe I perceived it in my 20s. So
That's a really good
yeah.
point, and I like how you commented on seasons because I do think that if you don't work on it, it can hit in any season. But I think it's a really important one in the 20s because I'm not in the
Hmm.
heart triad, but like the twos, threes, and fours, who may be a little more prone to that in an Enneagram way. But I remember in the
Right.
20s, oh my gosh, did I have some of that competition with other couples? And we'd have dinner at the newlyweds house, and was mine better? Was hers better?
Oh,
Some of it was
absolutely.
overt where, I'm not even going to say. Some of it was like us comparing ourselves to each other. Oh my gosh, so
Oh
bad.
my
Like
gosh. Yes.
22 years old. But
Oh, yes. Or like when the kids are little. Well, my kid said his first word at, 9 months. Oh, well, my kid didn't talk till 2.5,
right.
so,
It's like, oh my
so
gosh, and there's so many kids on the spectrum, and we're all on the spectrum in a
yeah.
way. Like, and I love how
Yes.
the book celebrates our quirks. And I think that as much as you said, when we can celebrate others, it's like you really nailed it when you're saying it's like, oh my gosh, that's oxygenating. And yet I think the opposite is true. If you don't celebrate and your friend feels that, like I know for me as a thinking type, I feel so unsafe if I pour in and celebrate, and then the friend, I can feel the jealousy and I could feel the
Absolutely.
lack of celebration. I'm like, oh my gosh, this person is out to get me, and I will start
Yes.
negatively chaining and be like, okay, I have to stop negatively chaining, but there's a sense of alert danger. And so I've tried to work with people to say, as much as I know you're desperate for friendship, hence the title of your book,
Right.
please
Right.
know that celebrating others will get you there, and not doing so, not only is it not God's economy, but it won't gain you friends. Is that what you've learned too?
Yeah, it's a barrier to him. Like I remember
Yeah.
I had one friend who, when I got my first book contract, I remember telling her, "Hey, I'm going to write a
Yeah.
book."
So
And
exciting.
her words said congratulations, but her face and her demeanor
Yeah.
did not. And so I
Oh,
thought right then and
my
there,
gosh.
I will
Yeah.
never talk about my work again because she is not for me.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of that way today. And so
Yeah.
I don't, unless, she
Yeah.
might bring it up, but by and large, it's become kind of a barrier between us. So yeah,
Yeah.
when you let that rule, there are consequences. So
Yeah. And that's maybe you've decided for yourself, I want to keep a small circle, but we're seeing from
right.
research that social circle is just as important as all the other things, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think you need a ton of friends. The best book I read on researching my book
Mhm.
is called Made for Friendship by Drew Hunter.
Okay.
And he's just a fantastic book. But he
Good.
talks about how we've made friendships a cruise ship, and really what we need is a submarine, like just a few that we go deep with,
Is that
not
right?
just a bunch that we know like very little about. So yeah, so your social circle is incredibly important. You need people you are going to be vulnerable with. I mean, and we, personally speaking, we had a really rough past several years, and I don't know if I would have made it through. I mean, the Lord is enough to get me through, but I believe how he worked was
Mm,
in many ways through my friends who were very intentional about
mm,
praying for me and, praying for family and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, their social
mhm.
circle is just as imperative today as, as when Jesus walked the earth, when he had friends. And so
Yes.
if he had
Oh my
friends,
gosh. Thank you
he
for
was
that.
perfect,
Yes. And he also,
and
he wasn't just like going out and teaching by himself. What a great point.
no, no, he wasn't. And, he was also intentional. He didn't
Mhm.
just go to the city gates and say, the first
Mhm.
12, disciples or first 12 people who show up are my disciples.
Yeah.
He sought them out with intention, but he sought them out and he needed
Yeah.
them. And so if he needed friends,
Mhm.
then very flawed Kristen needs friends.
And
So,
Krista, very flawed Krista.
yeah.
And also knowing not everyone can handle Krista and Kristen. Like I have told you said that, but like I've shared on this pod several times, like I need a large circle of people because we have a lot of stuff with our extended family. And so, but I don't mean huge. And that's good for us to
Yes.
ascertain, like,
Yes.
because I don't want to have my same friend or two having to recycle the same thing. Sometimes I
Yes.
am grateful for those friends who are good friends, maybe even great friends, but not the everyday friends. And they can kind of
Yes.
absorb, oh, wow, you're having these difficult visits. Let me process that with you. So I love that we have to be a good friend too. Jesus needed friends while he walked the earth. And you're also helping me to see the both and of the busy seasons, which I'm really taking to heart. Because even this morning, I felt guilty. I was at my Pure Barre class with my daughter. And so I made it a mother-daughter thing. And then I remember they said, whoever finished the challenge, who can come? And this lady asked me afterwards, are you going? And I'm like, well, it's my daughter's last dance. She's a senior. I'll probably have to volunteer for the dress rehearsal. And she goes, oh, I don't know anyone else going. And I was so torn. But in that moment, I had to choose my daughter. And so it
Right.
was just like one of those moments where you're like, I can't do it all. And I have to put away the pride of like, I can be
Yes.
everybody's best friend because I wanted to. But do you feel that too sometimes as a two?
Oh yeah. I have a good friend of mine, Maria, who I write about in the book. She has 6 kids, and she always says, if you say yes to something, you are automatically saying no to something else. And
Mhm.
so, like, there are seasons when I think back to when I had kids, yeah,
Yeah.
where I was volunteering more than I was writing, certainly. But
Mhm.
then there were seasons I wasn't volunteering a lick
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
had just too much going on. Or when you
Yeah.
you have a tragedy or a loss or something,
Yeah.
and you're like, I can barely be there for the people in my house, let alone for the
Yeah.
kindergarten field trip.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is nothing wrong with that. And I also, just to jump back a smidge, I
Yeah.
loved what you said, because as an Enneagram 2, I need more than one
A little
friend because
bit,
I would
yeah. We both need a
overwhelm
little
that
more.
friend.
Yes, we would over,
Yeah.
and I do sometimes,
So,
and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna stop writing
so
right now because I have written too much. Or with my best friend who's a two, who on Voxer, I will literally rescind some of my messages. I did that not long ago when I was hormonal, and I go, that was a 15-minute, and you're in the middle of your big week, and I go, just know that I was having a hormonal moment. And she goes, I
yes.
didn't get a chance to listen to that yet. That was just a moment for you.
That's so good. Well, but sometimes getting it out helps, even
It
if you're
did.
like,
It really blessed
you
me.
know,
And I wish
yeah.
you would have listened. And that's the thing that I've been processing with my audience, even with today's podcast that's been on today while we're recording. But it's about sitting and going into the deep places with the friends you actually do choose. And I notice you talk about that too, that it's
Yeah.
so important that because you're saying we can't choose everybody, the ones we do choose, we really want to nurture. Is that something that you've really experienced too?
Yes, I believe that, yeah, in my research, I discovered it takes for somebody to become like a really good friend, you have to spend 200 to 300 hours together.
Mm,
So, like, you have to log in those hours, but it's not a chore though, once you're with the right friends. But yeah, I think like any relationship, you have to regularly feed it for it to grow and thrive. And so, and again, while there might be seasons where you're only seeing her every 3 months as opposed to every month or every week, but there has to be some level of intentionality to stay on each other's radar, I think.
mm. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
encouragement if you're like, I haven't reached out. It's been a while. Like, it's a good time to reach back out because you want to keep growing. If it's one of those top five or top two or top 10, depending on how many you need. So thank you for that
Yes.
reminder for all of us. Before we go, a couple more questions. One of them is just going to be fun, and then we want to hear about your book. But I also do want to ask one more serious one, and that is about you have processed through rejection wounds. And when we have had those difficult friendships where we've been so hurt, and we all know that
Mhm.
maybe somebody's come after our husband and we thought they're our friend, or somebody
Mm.
was jealous and wouldn't celebrate us, but wanted, you talk about somebody who wanted a lot of babysitting but wouldn't give that back. All these
Right.
people listening have had a hurt. What do you recommend when we're walking past that wound, that hurt, and trying to reopen if we're just a little scared?
Right. Yeah, and I've been there too. I mean,
Mm. Yeah.
because I love women, but sometimes we can be tricky.
Yeah.
Some of
Yeah.
those some gals sure can be, and
Yeah.
maybe we all are at one time or
Yes,
another.
because I
But
think that same thing
but
is true with men and the, yeah. But
yes,
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 we're
with
women,
men
so we
too.
can
Yes.
relate on this.
Yes, I could, yeah, in a woman's body, I can,
Yeah.
certainly relate to that. So, but I believe first and foremost, so often rejection is just not about us. It's about the other person. It's about whatever they're going through, their bandwidth, their family stuff. Who knows what's been put on their radar? And I say that with such compassion because I have experienced like profound rejection, and it is
Yeah.
really hurtful.
Yeah.
It is not something I take lightly, and it is not
Mm.
something I think you can really walk through. And a good friend of mine, she had a best friend who was a best friend, like we're talking going to be a bridesmaid in a wedding, and then
Ooh.
suddenly that best friend just cut her off, like she had
Oh.
no answers,
Oh.
no reason as to why. And that's when it's really hard, is when you're rejected and you don't really understand
Mm.
why or what broke down. But I
Yeah.
have found, like I said, number one, that the rejection is often just not about us. It's about the other person, something they're going through.
Mm. Mhm.
And number two, like my friend Selena had said this a long time ago, and I've held on to it a lot. Sometimes rejection is God's protection against what's not in our best interest.
Mm.
And it's not fun. It doesn't make it like, oh, okay, well, I can easily accept it. It can be
Yeah.
hard to still
Mm.
accept, but
Yeah.
it is somehow in a fact, like somehow God knows something about where that friendship was going,
Yeah.
or that relationship, and cutting it off now is somehow preferable to doing it down the, or to what you were going to how you were going to be negatively be impacted down the road.
Okay.
And so I think, though, staying in prayer with him so that you can pivot from like the questions you have, like, oh my gosh, what did I do something wrong?
Yeah.
Did I say something, or did I not do something that I was supposed to do? And
Yeah.
pivot to those questions that have answers, like,
Mhm.
who does the Bible say that I am? And I am a cherished daughter of the Most High King. And focusing on those truthful statements that fill you up, instead of just ruminating in the really difficult questions that have no answers.
Thank you, because that would keep us away from new friendships if we kept going backwards. And
Yes.
I'm just remembering that when I tried before, and if you can instead frame it, I like that as like that God didn't have that for me, or that was just for a season. So I need to
Right.
be brave that He does care about relationships, as we can see through the example of Christ. And I can push forward gently, right? Not like
Right.
barreling through, but let me take one tentative step at a time and see if it's a fit.
Right. And just take a tentative step. I really like that. And, schedule a coffee date with somebody, and then kind of see what you think before you invite her into your house. Yeah, just take a step, but it can be a small step. And know that, because this happened over here, it doesn't mean it'll happen again. Because the Lord wants you to have your friends. Like, you are not the exception to the rule. He's not just
Good.
thinking, well, no, I actually mean it for everybody but you, or for most
Right.
people besides you. He
Yeah.
wants you to have your friends. And so he wants you to keep trying again for the friends you need.
Aw, thank you for that encouragement. That's beautiful. And your book is such an aid to that. There's so much more. And before you tell us where we can find it and more about you, Kristen, by the way, I love your name, Kristen Strong. You are so strong in Christ.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us about your favorite date night with your husband or date day, just because we love to think about marriages and how we're friends as well, and we are nurturing that relationship as well.
Oh, yes. Well, you know what we'd love to do is go to concerts. And so we will do that. So that's like that's if I could choose a date night, it'd be a delicious dinner
Oh,
and then a fun concert. But
oh,
on the everyday scale,
yeah. Yeah.
honestly, we
Just
love
something simple.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. On the everyday scale, we'd love to just enjoy eating together and then watching a show together as well, like one show in the evening, and so just real simple. But I would say, yeah, getting out and about. We also love to take walks, so
Oh,
together. So that would be up there as well. A little bit of hiking because we are in a pretty part of the world, but
yes, you are gorgeous
so
hiking. We love
so
hiking there.
yeah, yes. Although I mean, there's lots of pretty places in the world. I guess what I mean is we have a place where hiking is easy,
Yeah,
So
but it's also gorgeous. And one of our
it
daughters
is.
is like, okay, I have to get married in Colorado Springs one day.
Oh,
So
oh,
we
I love that. I love
Yes,
that.
me too.
So,
Well, tell everyone where they can continue to get to know you, Kristen, and also your beautiful book on friendship. We would love to do that. And also, you are a military wife, so you understand
yes.
that element as well. We would love to connect everybody with you.
Yeah, so I was a longtime military wife. My husband has since retired though. Actually like 12 years ago he retired in 2014 or 11 years, 2014 he retired.
Yeah.
But anyway, I so my most recent book that's releasing because I'm an author is called Desperate Woman Seeks Friends. Real talk about connection, rejection, and trying again for the friendships you need. And the Desperate Woman Seeks Friends title actually comes from the second time we lived in Dayton, Ohio. I felt like I could not pay people to be my friend. I
Yeah.
could not find friends. It was very different from the first time that we had lived there. And so I told my husband, and this was 2005 before social media, I said, I'm going to make a sign and hold it in our front yard that says "Desperate Woman Seeks Friends" because I cannot find friends. Anyway, I ended up not making the sign, but I almost did. So therein lies the title. I was pretty desperate. But you can find information about that book and about me at my website, KristenStrong.com. And my first name is Kristen. So KristenStrong.com. And I'm on Instagram too at Kristen Strong.
Oh my gosh, perfect. I love that you shared that. That was one of my favorite parts of your book too, is yeah, sometimes we just have to be vulnerable. I'm desperate. Everyone needs
Yes.
friends. So teach me how to be a friend and teach me how to know how to set boundaries around friendships. You did all of that today and more. Thank you, Kristen. We loved having you on, and all of that is in the show notes too. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a blast talking with you, Krista.
Thank you. Guys, thank you so much for joining today. It was such a joy to have you. I really loved just giving ourselves time to laugh, just even walking through this episode again. I got so much more, and I hope we can just all remember that it's worthy to figure out how to stay busy and do what we're called to do, as well as how to rest and have real relationships with people we love. I'm looking at a text from my friend right now that says, why don't we get together and make pizza soon? Let us know a good time. It's such a joy to have that, and it's on your terms. You don't have to give up if you haven't had much luck. We've all had seasons like that. Keep trying to find people. They're out there, they're for you, they love you just the way you are. They also know that you make mistakes, but they also love seeing you get healthier, rise up. These are the friends you want in your corner, not the friends, like Kristen said, that you have to hide your good news from or your hard hurts. We need real. So yes, let's go for that together. I look forward to hearing how it goes. You've got everything of her book and more in the show notes. And let's keep on going strong and even stronger together. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you again for listening with us. It was so wonderful to have you. I love knowing we're doing this journey together, not perfectly, but with love, grace, and hopefully some fun too. If you loved today's episode, make sure you leave us a 5-star review at Apple Podcast or Spotify so others can find it too. Visit our show notes so you can get all the links from today's show, as well as enneagramandmarriage.com, the Instagram, the Facebook, and all over the place. Make sure you spread the word. Love living intentionally with you. Bye-bye.